We'll also speak with Ron Herings. He is entrepreneur at Pharmo, but also professor of pharmacoepidemiology and healthcare optimization at the Amsterdam UMC. Welcome, Ron.
Fine, thank you.
Did I mention everything?
You did mention everything. Thank you for the introduction. Yes,
you're very welcome. Could you, in a few sentences, clarify what exactly it is that you do? I mean, I gave you all those great titles.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you. Well, I think that one of the challenges we have in personal healthcare is how to bring it to the people. And to do that, you need actually three things. You need a huge data infrastructure to develop actually algorithms. You need the smart people who can make algorithms, who understand algorithms. It's not only the technique, but you also need the medical doctors to make the algorithms. And the third one is you need actually an organization who can implement it in practice. So you as a patient can use actually that personalized healthcare, because the trick is not that everybody should be personalized, but you should know who should be personalized and when.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you see the pandemic now we have about the COVID, it's actually there is no need to vaccinate everybody, but you need to know who should be vaccinated because he is at high risk. And the second one is, how do you do that? How do you let doctors use that information they have already at their desk, that they can actually selectively vaccinate? If you do that, we would have actually saved hundreds, thousands of patients going to the hospital or death. And the challenges you have actually is that in the space of the data, you have that cloud issue you mentioned before, as that everybody gives access to the data, but nobody knows where. So you have to organize it into a kind of a patient dossier, which is quite sensitive, and therefore there are a lot of regulations about it. And fortunately, we now have the GDPR, which actually gives some force to the patients that they can control how data come into their personal dossier.
So you don't see the GDPR as a threat, but as a...
No, it's an advantage.
Okay, that's nice.
It's an advantage because we're talking about highly sensitive data, and we talk about algorithms. They influence your health, and they should be good. It should be the best you can do.
Yeah.
So we don't need to have algorithms which kill you off. That's of
Take
course
care of bias algorithm.
That's exaggerated. The second hurdle is actually, it's not a hurdle, it's an advantage that we have doctors who know a lot, and you can combine doctors and help them with their own generated data to develop the algorithm. So you have to collaborate with academics, which is a challenge in itself because they are hardly in competition. And also the financials for research are quite limited to do that. And the last part is most often the overlooked part, which is the most difficult part, is that if you have developed that algorithm and you have developed that device, how then you get it into current practice? Because it should also be reimbursed. It should also be it should also framed in the ethical framework. What my foregoing was saying, and that's very difficult.
Yeah.
Moreover, there is a fourth place, is that patient can put actually their own data into these data space by eHealth or by other organizations. So these patients' dossier, they are going to exist in the future of the clinical data, but also by the patient-generated data, the patient-reported data.
Yeah.
And that's what my company did the past years, is that we have a special organization for holding the data. We have a separate organization for studying drugs, and we do this together with all kinds of companies in Europe. And the third one is in a special company who implement actually the algorithms into practice.
Okay.
And of course, what you are hoping to do is that you can open up such an organizations to others, because it can help people who are very good in developing AI algorithms. You can give them access to these databases. But therefore, you need, of course, regulations, because you cannot give anybody access. And that makes it very difficult. That if you have these type of structures and you can and know and do the trick, who should have be access and who not?
Yeah. Because I think that there's a tension in the free market, that you have so many regulations that the government comes in with some kind of standardization, and there's a risk of giving some advantages to certain companies and leaving behind some other companies. I mean, you can't let everybody on the market, right? You want some kind of standardization of algorithms and programs.
It's health, it's sensitive, it cannot be open. Your information cannot be open, but you can contribute as a patient to the betterment of patient care by giving somebody who has a technical solution access to the data.
Yeah.
And that you should regulate, because there are a lot of cowboys around who want to use these data for commercial reasons.
Yeah.
And therefore it should be regulated. So
yeah, because I can imagine that, like for instance, in a hospital, if I go to a hospital, say I have my personalized medical information on this app or this program or this website, and somebody else has it on another app or another program or another organization. That's difficult.
That is very complex, because as a patient you assume that your GP or your doctor knows exactly what they did with you before, but they don't, because some information is in the hospital, others are at a GP desk, otherwise some information you didn't tell him.
Yeah.
And because when he wants to give you a good treatment, you need to organize your data somehow into a personal dossier.
And you like all the hospitals to use the same data programs.
Yes, and that should, of course, heavily protected, because that's quite normal, because you don't want to put it on a marketplace. What you actually want is, I give you my data, please apply some techniques and help me for my treatment. Yeah. Prevention or not prevention. And actually what we could and can do with these structures, we can be much earlier in life. So that's actually the most important thing of these personal health training. Suppose we could predict that you will react good to a drug and that your neighbor would have another drug. Yeah. Suppose we know that you are going to become sick and there is a treatment available. Can we treat you earlier in life?
Yeah.
Suppose we know that you get an adverse drug reaction from these data, and therefore you get another drug than the one was intended to. When we personalize that treatment, we win enormously in efficiency.
Yeah.
And can we do this? Yes. Are these things available in our country? Yes. What we cannot do, or what we are not good to, is in organizing actually all these different parts into a central organ, because you need that to control for that openness. What you need actually to help to attract people with brains who can work on the artificial and intelligent things, because these people, you should bother them with all kinds of regulations.
That's where I think the balance should be, like innovative companies having freedom and regulations and rules.
Therefore you go to a collaboration between actually not the academics, but you need the academics actually for the knowledge. Yeah. But you need to professionalize all these different aspects into a single organization which can give access to regulators, to companies, whatever. Yeah. And they do that. For instance, in Canada, they have done that.
Okay.
So it's possible, it's doable. In Europe, we have, of course, the challenge, that's just to answer questions, that we are with 27 different countries, with 27 different languages and 27 different healthcare systems and regulations. So
if you would have your call to action in one sentence to the viewers, what would that be?
Help us to open up these kind of structures, to facilitate research, to make new algorithms that can be the package insert of services and drugs for the future.
Clear. Well, thank you very much, Ron Herings.